Welcome to the Great Firechat, a candid update on the latest in China tech with inside experts Kevin Shimoda and Ade DeSantis.
Hey everybody, Kevin Shimoda and Ade DeSantis here, doing the Great Firechat inside and outside the Great Firewall. I just kind of took both of our parts. So thrown off by using this new platform, but actually liking it, trying out Zencastr so we can do some video. So first time you guys are seeing us potentially if you've been listening to the podcast for a while. And this is also going to be a podcast, so you might just be listening to it too. For those of you watching, we apologize for our shabby appearance. You probably thought we might be like in suits all the time or something. Ade,
That's not happening, no.
in Ade's defense, he owns a gym.
36 degrees outside right now.
Yeah.
I do not wear suits in Guangzhou in the summertime.
Not happening. Yeah, and I'm wearing my Boeing volunteer shirt, which everyone, when they see it, they're like, "Oh, you didn't work at Boeing. You were a volunteer." Okay, got it.
You gotta take that off your LinkedIn, man.
Yeah. I mean, like, I just never put in volunteer. I was a volunteer there for 3 years. We like to dress shabby, because the tech idea is you're so smart you don't need to look professional, right? That's what we're trying to prove. That's what we're trying to prove. Let's see if we can actually
the
pull
gray
it off.
hoodie principle.
Yeah. All right, Ade. Without further ado, so we run the current events. That's what we do here, and we try to put our own spin on it. So, Ade, should we get into it?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right. So, first, we got about 4 to 5 stories here, mostly China focused as usual. We tried to go for some easier ones today. There's just so much politics right now across the world, like U.S., China, Europe. We're trying to kind of trying to stick to the business side and the product side of things, because for us, the politics are going to kind of happen regardless. But we want to see what can we learn in all of this, and what's the opportunity for business people, and what are the opportunities that I like it on. I've been listening to Bankless, kind of drinking the Web3 Kool-Aid, and they go, how do you front run the opportunity? And that's a lot of what we're trying to do. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do with my book. That's what I'm trying to do here with Ade. Is there's a lot of innovations coming out of China that have not been picked up yet by the US, and for those reasons, that's why TikTok existed for a year in China and then went global and took the world by storm. Similarly, Shein was in China for 10 years and now is taking the world by storm. China's going to keep having innovations go globally unless people can learn from some of those and emulate some of those innovations.
And front run. Yeah.
And front run the opportunity. I love that.
Absolutely. So I think the first article that we want to discuss is about a new app coming from ByteDance. ByteDance, of course, being the company that created and runs both TikTok and Douyin. So it's really interesting because basically one of the differences in the social media landscape between the West and China is that China is missing an app like Instagram, an app that's very close to Instagram. There are many apps like Instagram in the Chinese ecosystem, but none of them are dominant like Instagram is in the West. There's no platform that everyone's using to share photos. And one of the reasons for that is because China kind of leapfrogged into short video. But that being said, there is still space for the kind of influencer marketing and lifestyle sharing that Instagram has kind of become known for. And so I think ByteDance has decided to jump into this, and they're going to go head to head with Xiaohongshu, which we talked about before. They're making something called Kesong and
croissant.
Croissant in Chinese.
Croissant,
right?
It means croissant in Chinese. Croissant, croissant.
And we've talked about Xiaohongshu before, and it's very interesting. You talk about innovations and how we can learn sort of more from what has been happening in China in its very increasingly separated internet ecosystem. And Xiaohongshu is definitely one of the fruits of that separation. It is like Instagram. It is like Yelp. It's kind of like a mixture between Instagram and Yelp and
Yeah.
Pinterest,
Yeah.
where people, you can follow people and they share sort of the products that they enjoy, the places that they go, and so using that you can source, if you go to a new city, you can figure out where the hot places are to eat. If you're looking to buy a bag, you can, follow, you can look at the people who you admire on Xiaohongshu and follow them and see what kind of bags they buy and get the same bag. um, so it very much lends itself towards the kind of direct marketing that we're seeing, growing. So we're seeing the e-commerce happening on live streaming on TikTok, Douyin. So people are saying, "Hey, we can't reach mass audiences anymore through TV and newspapers because they don't exist. So what are we going to replace that with?" And I mean, it's been developing over the last 10 years, probably, I would say, but now
Hmm.
it's becoming more and more clear that we're replacing that with a sort of the cult of personality, the influencer economy. And yeah, Kasong is going to be a dip, a sort of a reach in that direction. I don't know. Give me your insight here, Kevin.
Yeah, I think you've done a really good analysis on that right there, Ade. And yeah, again, if you're watching the videos, you might see me do hand signals. Ade and we've developed this hand communication where we're like, I'm done talking, and then I point at him. And now I'm having troubles breaking that habit. I find it really useful. It was like our SWAT team talk. Like your turn. Um, but yeah, really, I think really good analysis. It's kind of funny seeing the article on it that kind of says ByteDance is making an Instagram copy to compete with Xiaohongshu.
Right.
Um, and I really wonder if it's going to be an Instagram copy or a Xiaohongshu copy. Because when I see Xiaohongshu, I see what it does. I think you understand it better than me. You say you kind of, we've talked about it previously about Xiaohongshu. I mean, we've talked about it previously, and your wife uses it, and she seems to use it a decent amount. And I think you've
Yeah.
placed it pretty well as this kind of confluence point between Yelp. What was it? It was three: Yelp,
Pinterest.
Instagram, Pinterest. Exactly, where it's like you got hobbies, you got reviews, and then you got influencer aspect. And I see um, Instagram, I don't really understand Instagram that much. It's like influencers with a lot of beautiful photos that do review things, but that's not all they do. It's a lot of lifestyle. It's a lot of
Hmm.
kind of what they like, seeing a beautiful version of a very overly beautified version of their life. Um, I think Instagram kind of goes well with TikTok, which is a lot of glamorous kind of things in my mind. Obviously, there's like the nitty gritty videos of TikTok, but then there's also like the beautiful version of it, and that's like these influencers are always kind of look like bigger than life, larger than life. And Xiaohongshu is a lot more down to earth. It's a lot more down to earth, but it's a lot more review driven, product review
Yeah.
driven. It's like product experts, but it's more like not product experts in the way that we think of it in tech. It's like consumer experts. It's like I know um, luxury women handbags, and I know them
Right.
really
Right.
well. And like, here's how I review them, and they have some of
And
that on
and not
TikTok and
just that,
Instagram. Yeah, go
but
ahead.
also how to buy it and where to get the discounts and
Yeah,
those kinds of
yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I was like they have that on TikTok and Instagram, like or on these other platforms. You have influencers, especially around like makeup, where you're like, oh, they on Instagram they'll have all these photos of a girl being really beautiful, doing all these things, and then they're like, I also do makeup videos to show you how I get so beautiful. That seems to be like a really big theme. But
Mhm.
on Xiaohongshu, it wouldn't really be that angle. You wouldn't have that. I don't think you would really see too much of that lifestyle aspect. You just see like, here's how I do makeup. Like it's not
Yeah. Yeah.
about
Yeah.
becoming the influencer. It's about reviewing products and being known for reviewing things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I see it so different to Instagram, and I actually just feel like Instagram doesn't really exist in China still. And so I'm curious what croissant will be like, Xiaohongshu or Instagram.
I think
What do you think?
you've hit the nail right on the head. Instagram very much did not start as a commercial platform. It started as a lifestyle sharing, kind of like another way to look at Facebook, where instead of the emphasis being on words, and like, the early Facebook was just, hey, how are you feeling today? What's on your mind
Totally.
today? And Instagram was just that, but instead of writing something, you take a picture, and in a lot of ways, TikTok is the next generation of that, which is instead of a picture, now it's just video. Um,
Right.
but I think what we've seen on Instagram now is that we've learned, how to build an audience, because if there's a page on TikTok, on Instagram, sorry, that is just posting reviews of things, those tend to not be very popular, because you
Right.
follow the people who you're interested in, who match your lifestyle, or at least match the lifestyle that you aspire to, who share your values. And so they have to balance between posting, where they're traveling, and posting about, what's going on in their life, with product placement. And there is a very delicate balance. And a lot of people who build their careers on Instagram have found that balance. Um, and like you're saying, Xiao Hongshu is very different. Xiao Hongshu is more like, I mean, that's why I liken it to Pinterest. Pinterest
I like
is,
that. That's
one
a
of these
cool
companies,
comparison.
yeah, that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it, and actually, I find it extremely frustrating, because they've kind of taken over the image search on the web. So
Yes, they
if you're
have.
trying to,
And then you have
yeah,
to log in to get access
yeah,
to the images,
exactly,
and then you can't save them. You still have to save them to a
exactly,
Pinterest. So
yeah.
annoying.
It's so Pinterest is on my not fun
I would
list.
love Google to ban Pinterest
Yeah,
because of like practices of making images accessible but then not actually
right,
accessible. Like
right,
making them
exactly.
viewable but not accessible. It's really annoying.
But not looking at that, looking at where Pinterest came from, why Pinterest became a $1 billion company. I mean, out of nowhere, seemingly out of nowhere, but that very much is because sort of the VC and the tech industry is so male focused and male dominated. I
Right.
think Pinterest was a great example of how, very obvious, very obvious things can, uh, opportunities are there if embrace diversity, and if you embrace influence from different areas. And so Pinterest was started as a place to just, it's like a vision board. It's like, this is what I aspire to. This is what I want. These are my hobbies. These are my hopes for the future. And it was very popular with women.
Hmm.
And Xiaohongshu is very similar. It's like, you can kind of curate and collect the things that you aspire to. I want
Mm.
to visit these cities in Europe, and so you can see, what they've posted, what people have posted, and you're not really following the influencer, you're following the place. And you're not, these are the kind of, like you said,
That
luxury
totally,
bags. Yeah.
totally.
So these are luxury bags that I hope to get, and maybe if I soak up enough of this information, one day I'll be able to afford it. That kind of thing. So it does sound like there is sort of space in there for something in between, that allows people to share more about themselves and about their personality, as well as, obviously, they're going to add the e-commerce, they're going to add the tools to
Right.
build a living and to make money. And I think, actually, the thing that makes this story interesting is that ByteDance, at this point in its life, after growing TikTok to a global phenomenon, after adding e-commerce to Douyin in China, they are very well placed, right? So they can take all the tools that they've built for e-commerce and build them right into Kasong, so
Hmm.
that influencers or whoever ends up using the app can share about their life, can build a following, and can sell directly to their followers straight from the app. It's going to be super easy. It's going to be super straightforward. They already have Douyin Pay. They already have ByteDance has its own payment platform. I mean, I think it's going to be another nail in that sort of coffin that Alibaba has built, or has allowed itself to be built around.
Right. Or to be yes. Okay. Yes. Really good points. And hearing those points, I think it makes a lot of sense. I think in my mind, Kusong is going to be very much an Instagram copy in
Right.
China. because Instagram copies don't really exist, and I don't really consider Xiaohongshu an Instagram copy. In fact, I think your point was really well put. That uh, normally, for example, it's like in the West, you have some Instagram influencer visits some town in Thailand and then makes that town famous.
Yeah.
That kind of happens with Xiaohongshu, but more so what happens is this town is famous, and this Xiaohongshu, there's a person on Xiaohongshu that's got a really good guide to that place, or like
Right.
really good
Right.
review to the place. And like you said, it's like it's almost more like the place is famous first, and then the Xiaohongshu reviewer gets famous by their expertise and knowledge of the place. But it's not really the
Right.
other way
Right.
around.
Right.
It's product famous, and then the Xiaohongshu reviewer
It's product
is
focused.
it's product focused. It's the thing first, and then influencer second. And for that reason, it becomes really clear that Kasong would be much more influencer first because that's what TikTok is,
Exactly. Right.
and then product second. And I can see how it makes sense. With ByteDance, it's really kind of fun. We're talking about front running the opportunity here, right? That's kind of what I was talking about first. Is like it really makes sense. What I've been talking about a lot is taking these China innovations and then putting them globally. And then China's been so good about copying stuff that the US does, but the US hasn't been good about copying back. And I think it is a bit strange that there aren't any big successful Instagram copies in China right now. And it looks like ByteDance is really well positioned. I mean, they've been sitting there competing. TikTok
Oh
is
yeah.
doing is
Head to
dominant,
head.
but they've been competing with head to head with Instagram, and they would know very well what is these core advantages that Instagram has that TikTok doesn't. And then they would go, wow,
Hmm.
okay, there are a lot of reasons why you would have both as an influencer. Maybe like
Yes.
TikTok has a lot of videos, and like it's a good place to get found because people are just sitting there having videos thrown at them. But then Instagram is like a home for an influencer where like
Mm.
you go look at the influencer. It's for me, it's a lot of times it's a home for like celebrities and like let's just face it, like beautiful people, like, like celebrities and stuff that just want to have a home for people that are fans of them to just get a get a look into their lifestyle. Um, so I could see how Kusong, like you could have Douyin, which is all these big videos and everything, and then Kusong could be kind of like this. You're already a fan of this Douyin influencer. Now go to their page, look at all their photos, look at their lifestyle and everything, and it would just be kind of like a little more uh, proactive, where you're actively looking at content, looking at pictures instead of TikTok is a passive form of media consumption because you kind of sit there and videos are kind of thrown at you. It's kind of like leaving the TV on,
Yeah.
where
It's very much like
Instagram
that.
is
Yeah.
like you're on Netflix and you're deciding what you're going to watch, and
Yeah.
then TikTok is it's like the old school, just like the TV's on and it's your default watching whatever appears.
That's great. Yeah, I think we better move on though. So we got a couple more stories to talk about.
Actually, Ade, even before moving on, we can
Oh,
just
okay.
skip one or two stories because I just had an interesting idea. Front running the opportunity. Do we see an opportunity for a Xiaohongshu copy in the West?
Ooh.
Right? It's kind of an interesting. I mean, there are a lot of things that take up the space. Yelp is kind of dead or dying. I don't really hear of it too much. Pinterest is interesting, but it's not exactly a review platform. Um,
Right. Right.
there isn't any strong review platforms. Shein has a very strong review platform built into the app, into the ethos, into everything it does. And it's part of what makes Shein so successful. Amazon has a lot of reviews. Google's trying to do reviews. All these things are trying to jump on reviews. No one does it perfectly. And it would
Mm.
be interesting to see an app that just kind of embraces all of that. And what do you
Yeah,
think?
that's a great point. I think you're absolutely right. One of the things that we've seen is how important authenticity is, right? Because people have learned how easy it is to game Amazon reviews, how easy it is to game Google reviews. You can easily just buy 500 positive 5-star reviews for your thingy on Amazon. And so, e-commerce shoppers in the US are already sort of like, yeah, whatever. So, where do they source their purchasing ideas? I mean, I imagine a lot of it probably starts from Instagram at this point.
Yeah.
A lot of that marketing happens on Instagram. Uh,
Mm.
and I think advertising, I mean, that's why Google advertising and Facebook advertising are so popular, is because they're able to pinpoint their advertising so precisely to the people that are already primed for that product. Um, and so it would be very interesting. I think that one of the reasons why it probably doesn't exist is because of the predominance of advertising. So,
Right.
um, you have to remember that big companies like Google and Facebook and Amazon at this point are very wary of disrupting their own platforms.
Mm.
And so,
I like
uh,
that.
if
Good point.
someone came up with a Xiaohongshu clone or something that you know uh, collated the sort of the information gathering stage of the purchase, yeah, they would be taking customers away from Google. They'd be taking customers away from Facebook. Um, so whoever takes on that challenge has some companies with big bank accounts that they'd have to fight against, which
Yeah,
which
well, just make
brings
it to
us
be
to
bought out. Just make it to be sold out. It
okay.
sounds like is okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Audie's
I was just gonna
more of a
say, like,
classic entrepreneur than me.
we
I'm just
yeah,
like,
yeah, no, you don't plan for an exit, right? you
yeah, yeah.
you build for the future, you build for the long run, and then hopefully something nice happens along the way.
I- I'm just thinking out in my mind why Xiaohongshu works, and when I'm thinking about it, I'm kind of surprised. I'm surprised it doesn't really exist in the West, and that's reviews are the concept of reviews have been existed online for a long time, and a lot of it is built around this like ethos of the original web 1 or like original internet.
Yeah, for
That's like
sure. I mean,
you should
Yelp
help your
was
fellow netizens, and it's like you are a good person. And what is it? South Park does this amazing episode on Yelp, and it's like 15 years old, and it's just
yeah,
hilarious. And
yeah.
it's like this guy writing a Yelp review on Candlelight, and he's like stressing over making this amazing Yelp reviews, and he's and and it kind of highlights it. The South Park highlights this thing that is kind of hilarious, and he's like, I just thought that the soup was lukewarm, and it just wasn't warm enough, and it was but what's kind of funny about it is it like who gives a shiz about your review? Who cares about your review?
Exactly,
No
yeah.
one cares. Like, and that's and I think as people get more cynical, as the internet matures, people are less internet idealistic about just like contributing to the internet is for the greater good. And now they're like, I'm just contributing to Amazon's success, and I'm a little bit what is it? Not disenchanted with
Of
helping the
course.
internet because you're like,
Yeah,
I'm helping Google, and like Google's great, but like, does it really need
right.
my help?
It
Um,
doesn't, no.
and so I think there's a decreasing amount of incentives in that the kind of the concept of like, hey, just help us out. Like all these tech companies nowadays, are like,
Yeah,
hey,
right.
hey, help me out. Like I just had HelloFresh give me a call a bit ago, and like, could you give us a survey? I was like, look, you have like 40 seconds. I don't feel like helping HelloFresh with my time. But anyways, where I want to get with this is that Xiaohongshu does something I think really original, where they tie reviews with influencer. Because with the idea of Yelp is you do these reviews, but then it's like, who cares and why are you doing the
Right.
reviews? And like, are you
So
really
there's no
you like
credibility.
there's no credibility. And also it's like I think people are really losing an incentive to just help the internet companies and just help the internet, which is
Yeah,
what the
for
original
sure. I mean, for
concept
10
is.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's this decreasing amount of trying to help other people. Google reviews keep sending me like messages. 10,000 people have seen your photo that you shared on this restaurant, and I'm like, go away, Google reviews. Like I don't need your help or like your appreciation. But what Xiaohongshu has done is they've married reviews with influencer, and therefore
Right.
that makes you incentivized to do reviews because everyone wants to become an influencer. Everyone wants to become famous. Everyone wants to like grow their network. Once you become an influencer, then now you can do advertisements. There's entire economies based around that. Xiaohongshu got on that really early. This is 9 years old already, and
Right,
they've
right.
paired those two, and they've given incentives to giving a review
That's
because then you
true.
kind of become an influencer, and they have this whole kind of economy around that. And just by the way, is she and I said how their reviews are really impressive. Is that you get credits and money as after reviewing things. So you like get points that then goes to money and discounts to Shein purchases for reviewing things. And the more your review is seen, the more review is liked and marked as helpful, then you literally get money for it. So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
think that China has really jumped on and realized that people to get good reviews. I mean, China realized it early because you could just buy reviews and it was just a total mess. And so they have actually business models that I think are more advanced in the West when it comes to
Mm.
reviews. And I see an opportunity. I personally see an opportunity for something like Xiaohongshu to jump in and give intelligent incentives for reviews, and then make this smart platform, maybe based around influence, maybe based around something else. Um, and if you want to make
Yeah.
that, you can just contact Ade and I, and
Yeah.
we can all
Absolutely.
make that
We're here to
happen.
help. All right.
All right, I think I've used up as much of that nugget as possible. Okay, we can jump to the next one, Ade.
No, that was really fascinating. I appreciated that a lot. But yeah, so we did want to touch on some news that we have been discussing quite a bit. The whole Didi crackdown, and just a quick catch up is that Didi went public in the U.S. pretty much immediately after that, about a year ago. Immediately after that, Beijing came in and said, we're going to run a cybersecurity probe on you. Take your apps off the App Store. They're not allowed to bring on new users. They still have a huge business with their existing users, but just like any other app, you need to always be bringing in new people to grow. Um, and so, not being in the app stores has hurt their business quite a bit over the last year. And then on top of that, we're seeing that sort of this whole thing has finally come to an end, and they will be fined over a billion, 1.28 billion US dollars, about 4.7% of their revenue, which is a big fine. It's a big fine.
Yeah.
And what's interesting to me is one, there doesn't seem to be like a clear reason for the fine. There isn't like, this is law code 7734582 that you broke, and therefore you're getting a fine. It's more like, they're being fined for having incorrect security practices. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, so I think, for me, it is kind of the end of one of the sagas that we've followed over the years. And also, it is also just very telling about you know where Chinese tech sits in relation to the government. It's a very clear message of who's in charge.
Mm.
And so I wanted to hear what you thought about that.
I will. A great point that it's a really big fine. Because first I don't know. I see with these big tech companies these days. I mean, Apple being hit with like $1 billion fine. They're like, oh, whatever. We were going to pay that much in lawyer fees. We'll just pay the fine. There's like
Yeah.
Apple just so much cash. They're like, oh, whatever. Yeah, okay. We don't need to go to court. Oh, you just want $1 billion? It's like $1 million. It's not.
Right.
Oh, that's nothing these days. But 1.3 billion for Didi right now, after being hit for a year straight, is like kicking a man while he's down.
Hmm. Hmm.
Didi was such a like soaring successful company for so long. And yeah, and then it just really fell from grace with their US listings, and that's something we've already talked about several times, so we don't want to go too far into it. But then at least I think this is like the end of this investigation, and this is the fine, and now Didi can ideally move forward after this. Uh, but man, it's a pretty big hit. I think it's like Didi's going to be happy that it's behind them, and hopefully they can move forward. But can they
Yeah.
move forward? Do you think, or like, do you think
Oh,
Didi's
they
doom
definitely
now
can.
is yeah? Okay, what
No,
do
no,
you
no.
think?
They definitely can. I mean, so the reason why we say it's over is because they are going to finally be allowed to put themselves back in the App Store. They're going to
Right.
be allowed to take on new users. Essentially, what happened is Didi was a monopoly. I mean, they were a
Yeah.
transportation monopoly in the city, which as a user is actually a nice thing. You don't want to.
Until they hike up prices, but at the
Right, until they
time,
hike up prices.
yeah,
But
yeah,
but
yeah,
it is frustrating as a user to like, okay, it's time to go home from work. now which of the 7 apps should I open to like,
Yeah.
and and like always be switching back and forth between which one has a better price
So
and which
that's going to
one
be
can get
nice.
there faster. That gets annoying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really nice to just have one app. You know what to do. You know how to open it. I think in the U.S., the Lyft Uber dichotomy duopoly actually
Hmm.
kind of solved that problem. Like it's two
Yeah.
apps is good, and you kind of like pick one and use that over and over again. What's happened since Didi has been blocked from the App Store, you know, there was no previously there had been very very little investment into competing platforms, right? So, but
Right.
as soon as Didi got hit with those fines and got taken out of the App Store, you saw advertising for alternative ride sharing apps. There are now a multitude of ride sharing apps. Some of them offering really cheap prices, steep discounts, trying to steal customers from Didi. Um, one thing that just as a user I have noticed is that Didi is slower.
Mm.
It used to be like you would go downstairs, you would hit I want a car, and the car would already be
Be
sitting
there.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it was just so fast. And now it takes
Yeah.
2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I know we're spoiled, but
Yeah.
so that has been interesting to watch. And what's we've seen is that the government has sort of um, they had their clear objectives in mind. They said, okay, we want to take down this monopoly because it's dangerous to have a monopoly that could just hike prices and control mobility for all Chinese citizens in every city. That's not a good situation either. They wanted to, increase competition so to keep the prices low, which they did, and they wanted to show who's boss. And Didi is one of these situations. I think we did discuss it, and also there was the article that we posted that we included in the show notes last week that talked about what was happening behind closed doors at Didi. And there's just an incredible amount of tension between the billions of dollars that were invested from companies like SoftBank and Tiger Global, who were looking for that return on investment.
Right.
Basically using the numbers that were projected when Didi was a monopoly,
Right.
and now those are all in the trash. And um, so at the board level, you just know that there's been some crazy battles going on. Um, but at the same time, I don't think anyone is giving up on Didi. It
Mm.
still is the by far the dominant platform. Um, and I think it'll be fine. I think it'll be quite a successful platform because it's proven that mobility apps help make the city run, and so we're going to continue to see it. Hopefully now that there's competition, we'll continue to see innovation.
So with Didi back online, is it going to be kind of like the king or queen has returned and the market is now stable? The mobility queen of Didi has returned. The market is now stable where everyone's going to just go back to Didi. These numerous suitors that try to usurp Didi's power will now return to other kind of
I
enterprises.
no,
It
I
sounds like the
think
industry was really taken by surprise because
it was
there were Didi had several competitors for a long time, and then they all just go, well, Didi won, and they all just kind of fell
exactly,
off.
yeah.
The industry realized it, the market kind of realized it, and everyone switched to Didi, and they had effectively a monopoly, like you said. Um, so many prospects, and they were just, like I said, soaring, skyrocketing. So, what do you think with them coming back? Is it
No, they're coming back to a highly competitive market,
got it?
right? And so they do not enjoy the dominance that they had. They're going to have to compete on price. They're going to have to compete on technology, and this kind of like if you take a year out of Didi's life cycle and you realize how quickly the next stage is coming, right? So
Yeah,
We Ride, Pony AI, Apollo from Baidu, they're all building robo taxis, and they're all getting licenses to start running, driverless taxis in
crazy.
major cities. And we've seen that trend has started to grow and grow and grow. I mean, and it's not going to be next year. It's not going to be the year after that. But I think Didi's, they're going to have some even stronger competition coming up within the next 5 years.
Right. Crazy. And Ade, don't worry. I can hear the construction in the background. Don't worry too much about it. It actually isn't coming through too bad. I'm sure it sounds really loud to you, but it's not coming too bad to you. You're like, you feel like they're drilling into your head. I remember endless construction in China. That's just the story of China's economic growth is just endless construction. Jumping to the next story, this one's a bit closer to home for me. NetEase is opening up a new gaming studio in Seattle, my hometown. They've hired Jerry Hook, who apparently was the head designer for Halo Infinity. And it's going to be a gaming studio focused on first person narrative and action stories. So I think more Halo games coming out, but this time owned by NetEase with a studio. It's interesting because you see these Tencent and NetEase buying studios and game developers and gaming companies around the world. You don't see them commonly opening up studios. This might be. I'm kind of curious if they'll be developing their own games or more kind of publishing games for other people. It is a gaming studio. I kind of forget a little bit. I used to know how it works in gaming world. It's like you got like a developer and then some other kind of like project and then publisher. There's a few kind of parts to how games are created and published. Um, but I think it's kind of hard to tell. Gaming studio, I believe it means they're making their own games, which is kind of surprising to me. Normally see NetEase, Tencent buying gaming studios, buying games, investing in games, not starting them themselves. Is what do you think this means, Ade?
Well, this is pretty exciting news to me. I think something that we've seen in the U.S. in the gaming industry is consolidation, right?
Right.
So specifically with Microsoft, Activision, Blizzard.
Case in point.
Um, so as these big gaming studios continue to just buy up smaller studios, and everything consolidates, you get sort of this group think where, okay, you're just going to put all the money behind the big games, behind the Halos and behind the League of Legends and
Warcraft.
Warcraft, and new games get put to the wayside. So
Right.
I'm a huge fan. Like, I think it's great
That's
that
awesome. Yeah.
NetEase is saying, hey, let's invest in in another country. Let's take the expertise that we've built over the last 20 years, designing and building games for the Chinese market to the global market. I mean, it remains to be seen what they end up building, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it's interesting because we've seen recently, first off, gaming licenses and the gaming market in China has is just kind of crashing. We're very, let's say, very cold right now with the government not really giving licenses, with a lot of restrictions on kids gaming, etc. And so we've seen like I think the third biggest game right now, third biggest studio is the one that Peter, our guest, Peter talked about. I forgot that's another guest that we had. Um, in that's based out of Shanghai, and they made that game Genshin Impact that has been
Yeah, yeah,
wildly popular outside of China, Japan, and it's kind of a Japanese. It's like a JRPG, Japanese role playing game, and so we're seeing that was really successful, and now kind of Tencent and NetEase are also looking at, okay, how do we take some of our IP, some of our own games, and go global with them? Honor of the Kings was a great example, really successful in China, and then they also launched in Southeast Asia, and in other places, and it was really popular in Southeast Asia mostly. And so now Tencent and NetEase are going, okay, the market in China is not hot right now for games, and we're looking at more global users, and kind of going for the global market. TikTok is nailing the global market. Shein's nailing the global market. Genshin Impact is nailing it. A few other people are nailing it. Let's start our own studio, take some of our ideas from China, and go straight to the United States with game creation. So it's kind of cool and interesting to see Chinese innovation now going global first with some of their endeavors.
yeah. Absolutely, that's exciting to me. I think that's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. Um,
Okay. Well, next story, a quick one, just a kind of lighthearted one that I just think is funny is that I just wanted to have like a different spin because we have so much business stuff and talk a little bit about culture. And that's LARPing, live action role play, has become really popular in China over the past several years. I know that if you've heard of Mafia or what is it's called Werewolf Langrensha. Um, and then actually more recently, the equivalent game is Among Us that became a crazy sensation across the world. And that is these are all essentially the same games where and they've been kind of existed for a long time. I remember playing them when I was 16 in Spain. Was the first time I played Mafia, and essentially the idea is you have a group of five or more people, four or more people, and then you go. All of you are good people, and then everyone put their heads down, and then you find out, and then one person is assigned being the murderer, or the baddie, and then that person tries to act like a good person, and then each night kills someone. Each night, like each turn, kills someone, and then everyone tries to figure out who is the baddie, who's the
Right.
Mao, the bad character. And live action role play is basically where you do a similar thing, but they call it Jubin Shao. It's like script killing, where everyone has I forget they're called like party games, or like who murdered, or like murder mystery nights
Murder
is what we call them.
mysteries, yeah.
Yeah, murder mystery.
Dinner.
Yeah, and it's something that kind of like I think older people do, like 40s and 50s year olds do it, and it's kind of you all get a little. Basically, everyone will get so that Mafia and Among Us is kind of the simple version, and then LARPing, live action role playing, is the more complex version where the game's played over like 2 or 3 hours, and everyone's given a long page of which is your character and your profile. And I remember because the last time I played it was in China. It was 4 years ago, and it was my kind of Chinese, kind of American, China grew up American guy wanted to do it for his birthday, and I played the quarterback football player that then got killed by some poison in his cup, and we kind of went
I
around
bet
all
I bet you
acting,
played that out.
yeah, and I played it gloriously. I had one of the most intense deaths that you could imagine. But so the story here is that a 22-year-old, so it became popular, and then it's kind of come to a halt a bit because a 22-year-old student played this kind of murder mystery and then got so afraid that she unfortunately suffered a brain hemorrhage, and then
That's
that kind of
crazy.
threw off all these. And I don't know if it was she got it. I don't know if I think it was the brain hemorrhage was because of the like being terrified. Um, that's supposedly why. It could have been coincidental. But anyways, state-run media picked it up, and now Communist Party is now cracking down on LARPing, which is kind of an interesting and funny thing to crack down on. Apparently, in this last year, according to iMedia Research, people spent near $3 billion on these murder mysteries. So it's become, since I left China about 5 years ago, it sounds like it became much more popular. I knew at the time just Mafia was really popular, and I got really annoyed at that game because I just hate sitting there and lying for like hours on end. And now it seems like they all just leveled up with like it's like Mafia. It's like the murder mystery is like a 3 hour game of Mafia. But then you have role playing. So have you? Yeah. What do you think of this,
Well,
Auden? Have
yeah.
you?
First of all, I mean, I wanted to make sure there's a distinction when I heard, live action role playing. I think about guys with cardboard swords
Hundred
running around
percent.
in a
That's what I
park.
think too. That's what I think too.
Um,
And
but
in fact,
this is different,
they have that here in Newcastle, and I
right?
haven't gone
That
yet,
makes
but they have it on
sense.
Fridays.
Yeah,
So if you're in
and
Newcastle and you want to go LARPing, let's join up. We'll form up.
yeah,
We'll go into the melee. We'll fight. No, okay, go ahead.
and what we're talking about here is much less dress uppy and much more kind of sitting in a room with a bunch of strangers or friends
Right.
for a long time. And my experience with this is my son, my 13, when he was 12 or 13, was looking for something to do, something to occupy his time because he was, I think it was summertime and he was
He's
kind of
got a
bouncing
lot of
off the
energy.
walls.
He's
He's
got a
got a
lot
lot
of
of
energy.
energy. And so he tried it, and it was exactly one of these games, and he was there for 6 or 7 hours, and it was really intense. And I
My
remember
God.
and I remember when he was done, I was like, "Well, how was it?" And he goes, "It was okay, but yeah, it was really intense." Like,
My gosh.
so I mean, I can imagine how if I think he was probably a little bit too young for it.
Right.
And so if you're a little bit older and have a little bit more of a active imagination and social skills, it could be very interesting, very engaging. But yeah, I mean, almost $3 billion. I mean, that's no small change.
That's a
I mean,
lot of money. I mean,
let's bring this one to the U.S. Let's bring this one to. Can we monetize LARPing in Newcastle?
I would never imagine LARPing making any money. Even LARPing in Newcastle is like, come. It's I think I don't even know if they charge money. I think it's like they're like maybe $5, $10, and they're like, we'll provide you with the swords and the armor and everything. I don't know how I still haven't gone. I think it's because I have soccer games on Friday, but
Yeah,
I do
that is the
Dungeons and
interesting
Dragons
thing.
role playing games. Dungeons and
Right.
Dragons is the tabletop role playing games have become the real big fad, especially because of Stranger Things outside of China in the West. And that's something I've been doing for the past 3 years. What I like about it is you're in a character, but you're out of the character. Whereas with these murder mystery things, you're like expected to be in character for hours, and as well as Mafia, you just sit there and if you're the baddie, you have to just continuously lie for tens of minutes and hours, and oh, it kills me. I can't do it. I can't do it. It
Yeah,
gives me it
there
gives
was a
me
time
goosebumps.
when in the Chinese VC industry, there was, they were saying you have to be good at werewolf, because that's basically what
Oh,
happens when a bunch of VCs get together and talk deals. They also play a game of werewolf.
oh God.
Yeah, and
It was so popular in
it
WeChat,
was
and
super popular.
I
Yeah,
absolutely hated it because it feels like it's like kind of lying, and then like just like lying to each other, and like in kind of playing these games of like cat and mouse, and
social engineering.
horrible. Oh, it was horrible. I absolutely hated it. Yeah, I would. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah,
I hope that's not the case anymore in for VCs in
I don't think
China.
so. I think the fad has kind of passed.
I
So, but before we move on and before we close out here, I did want to bring up an article I came across in the Wall Street Journal, that quoted a certain expert named Kevin Shimoda.
Yeah, I think I sent you that article, Ade. I think I sent you that article.
I think I sent it to all my friends because it's so cool. It's so cool, man. Can you tell us a little bit about that article and your involvement and what it was about?
Yeah. Okay. So obviously, I've written a book. I've talked about it several times, and my biggest hope was that one of the big media, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or Bloomberg would pick it up. And Wall Street Journal picked it up mostly because of Elon Musk going crazy about super apps, and then me having the only book on super apps. So that's kind of exciting. The Wall Street Journal article quotes me 4 times. It's like 50% of the article is just me, which is funny because the guy interviewed me like
Nice.
one day before he published. So I just imagine he was just like, "Oh, I wonder." I just wonder what he had written before he interviewed me. Like, it was funny. It was funny talking to him because he didn't really seem to want to write about it because he's like, "This is just a bunch of hype." My CEO basically said I have to write on this because all of these big companies like Uber, Spotify, PayPal, Snapchat, and Jack Dorsey's Block all want to make super apps. And so he's like, I don't really care for this hype, this buzzword, but my like chief something said I have to write about it, which was lucky for me because then he got to talk to me about it, and it was fun to talk about it. And I'm you can check out the article. We're gonna put it in the show notes. I if you hit a paywall, hit me up. I bought a subscription just so I could see my quotes. That's how much I love myself. I just had to. I mean, I had to see what he quoted me, right? So I got this subscription. So hit me up and I'll send you a PDF. Uh, yeah, and I kind of tried to just tell. I was kind of trying to tell him like it's not super app is like a concept. There's strategies you can take from it, but it's not something, and it's very abstract, and it's not. And for me, it's
Yeah,
more like a bit of an ethos. And it's a bit of a loose concept, but there are a lot of things to learn from what WeChat has accomplished, and
absolutely.
I think it's doable in the West when you look at things like how much data Google has. Um,
Yeah.
but
And
Ade and yeah, go ahead, Ade.
I was just going to say, I think you're going to touch on the same thing. We have
Yes,
a the next episode that I think is going to come out is going to be a
special
chat
episode.
we had. Yeah, a special episode, a little bit of a different format, with the founder of a new app called This App. So that's something that we can look forward
Robbie
to.
Wade. Yep. So yeah, Ade and I just interviewed Robbie Wade. I guess more just had a chat with him, not exactly interviewed. And we just tried to talk out this. It was before Elon Musk announced that he's pulling out of the Twitter deal, and now who knows? Maybe he'll be pulled back in. Like it's like the girlfriend that wouldn't let go, that never wanted in the relationship in the first place.
Right.
And we talk about, because Robbie Wade is he's making an app that he calls a super app, and man, we've have the alpha version, we're
He's
testing it. He's got the
yeah,
bits,
he's
he's got
doing
the
it.
parts,
He's
he's
doing
got
it.
the
It's pretty
features.
cool.
It's kind of got feature parity. It's actually got features that I think are better than what WeChat has done. I think it's better positioned to be something very useful and like have a lot of utility compared to WeChat, because it has a lot of features built in from the very beginning. And I think there's a lot more that apps can do. I think there's a lot more that tech can do, than just shove a bunch of ads at you and like get you to
Oh
look at
man,
like
no
beautiful
kidding.
people online like Instagram or like Facebook,
Yeah.
and like get you to just feel FOMO. I think there's a lot of utility in tech, and um, a lot of the big tech companies are finding a formula of getting our eyeballs, but like kind of ruining our souls. So I'm hoping
Oh
we can
man, we should
dark
get the Wall
moments.
Street Journal, to quote you on that because that was gold.
It's so
Um,
true, man. It's so true.
yeah.
You like, I feel so empty. I get on some of these platforms, and then afterwards I was like, God, I feel gross. I need to like wash my brain after that.
Well, there's one more. Speaking of washing your brain, there's one more article that we're going to link in the show notes. Kind of a bonus. It's a really good deep dive into the birth of Douyin/TikTok. So
Right.
if you guys don't know the story, uh, Douyin is the Chinese version of TikTok, and the two apps are functionally pretty much the same, but they're both owned by ByteDance in Beijing, but they're completely separate. If you are in China, you actually cannot use TikTok.
Hmm.
You have to use Douyin, and if you're outside of China, you cannot use Douyin, and that has a lot to do with the way the government the internet works in China, and the way the
Yep.
government monitors the internet in China. But the story, these stories of beginnings, the stories of where these things come from. I mean, regardless of whether you love it or hate it, TikTok has absolutely taken over the world. Um,
Totally.
and so, the story of the first five, the team of 5 to 10 people who kicked it all off is super interesting. So it's a recommended read.
And I think I'll go on the record. I think I love to hate TikTok. I just see it, and it's just a bunch of noise. But I think it's a really interesting story, and it's a really impressive story. And I think it's a story that should be better understood and known. Like entrepreneurs and tech entrepreneurs are revered as like gods in the US, and they're like, but I'd love to see some more Chinese tech entrepreneurs being revered rather than just giving all of the censorship and political government aspects of it so much limelight, or
Yeah,
so much time
exactly.
in
It's
the spotlight.
it's a great entrepreneurial story,
Yeah.
and so it's worth a look.
Well,
All right,
thanks
I
for
think
listening
that's
or watching. Audie, any last words?
man. Just hope everyone's having a good time in that heat. Getting through the summer. I guess you're in the middle of winter for you, but over in the north, we're all burning up.
All right, I'm waiting because I want to hear a little more of Audie's construction, and then I'm gonna segue it perfectly into an outro with a click. Loving this new platform. Here we go. Yes, that
Oh,
was perfect.
beautiful.
Thanks so much for listening. See you next time.
All right.